So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to this session on Connecting the Opens. My name is Vanessa Proudman. I'm the director of Spark Europe, and I have colleagues with me, Paolo Corti, who's the Open Education Community Manager at Spark Europe, and Paul Stacey, who I think needs no introduction, and he's been consulting with us. So this is a collaborative effort today. You're just hearing my voice for the moment, but Paolo will end the session. So thank you so much for coming. Let me see. So if we're talking about the opens, what do we mean by that? If we're talking about connecting the opens, there are many aspects of open, going back to the early days of open source. But in the meantime, we can talk about open software, open hardware, open access, of course, been running for more than 20 years. Increasingly open infrastructures available, the FAIR principles relating to open science, and of course, open innovation and open education. And on many different levels, these can be connected depending on the policy, the mission and vision of the organization, or also if you look on a practical level. So there are many opportunities to connect the opens. That's what we're going to be calling them today. And maybe there are other opens that are not included here, but let me take you through some of the work that we've been doing. It's an update on our work on connecting the opens, and there will certainly be much more going forward, but let me tell you where we are. So, some of you attended last year, but we're still on this plan for Connecting the Opens, with great thanks to the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation that's made this possible. So we've been mapping who is working on open science and open education across Europe, and that's really helped us identify, speaking to some key leaders in this space at universities across Europe. And we're going to report on that today. What have we heard from them on how they see connecting the opens and what they are doing in this field. So we've been documenting the similarities and differences across institutions, and that's going to help us develop an action plan going forward. And ultimately, we would like Spark Europe to be a hub to help those who would like to connect more on different levels of open. So that's the context we find ourselves in. So why now? So clearly we're building on the success of open access and open science, and of course free open source software and all the other opens. There is a huge digital transformation not to be forgotten in both research and education. And you also see some countries like in the Netherlands who are really thoroughly re-looking at how education is organized and provided, and how does open education fit in with that, and linking it to the other opens. Of course, there are growing national, regional, and global policy developments in the opens. The UNESCO OER recommendation, but the Open Science recommendation also mentions open education in the Open Science one. And of course, rewards and incentives, the QARA, although it focuses on research, it does touch on education, although very mildly. And of course, there are increasing national mandates, although there aren't many that connect open science and open education. Finland is one of those, but we need to see more of those in the making. We're also seeing, of course, increasingly an evolution in IP and publishing strategies. So we hope that these are increasingly open, but there is more protectionism with research security challenges. So that's a challenge that we have to deal with, and we want to ensure that open is fundamental and a principle that continues to be relevant and priority for universities across Europe. Of course, huge change in technology, a large cottage industry of ed tech service providers. Of course, there's the big influence of AI But open is also, as those are seen as an innovation driver. So not necessarily just a concern, but very much as a facilitator for innovation. And of course, institutions are increasingly under pressure to remain relevant and accountable and efficient and equitable. So, of course, connecting the opens makes perfect sense in that context. So what is shifting? I think what we're seeing, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate today, we have been talking about the importance of connecting the open, so advocating for that and talking about the beliefs in the motivations for that. But what we are now seeing after our research with looking at 13 universities and including universities of applied sciences across Europe, that actually there is really concrete policy, strategy, and serious senior management considerations around connecting the opens. And some of them are also stepping up, allocating resources and having real action plans in place or in the making. And sometimes our research resulted in bringing people to the table, more people to the table, senior management, to talk to each other more about connecting the opens. So we're really pleased about that. So what I would like to do today is to tell you where we've got with that. So in 2024 and 2025, we spoke to a very wide range of actors. So from rectors to vice chancellors, directors of learning, teaching and web services, library directors, senior policy and knowledge management advisors at institutions. We also had VPs of research or academic affairs and open education, directors of communication, chief technical officers, deans for online and digital education, or heads of the Academic and Research Centre for Quality Assurance in Education. So there are very many different roles that universities have, and we spoke to a real selection of those, and it was really wonderful to listen to their perceptions, to listen to their views on connecting the opens, but not just their views and their visions, but also how they are translating that into action. And we spoke to people from Austria, France, Germany, Sweden, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Ukraine. So we talked to them. We picked their brains about the history of open at their institution, how this links to their vision, their missions, goals, and values. What are some of the drivers behind open? What's the case for connecting the opens? That's what I'm going to talk about today. But we also talked to them about what policy they have in place, if any, what strategy and plans, what's the role of senior leadership in driving this forward, what are some of the incentives and barriers, and what are the resources that they are using to implement this change. So you will be hearing in the coming months, you will be hearing from us what we've been hearing from all of those universities in all of these areas. But today I'm going to zone in on the case for connecting the opens. Firstly, what we've heard is what's the expanding meaning of open. So what did we hear from them, how they see open? So I think there are a number of universities see it really goes beyond publications. So that includes open data, infrastructure, education, innovation, and open governance. And it's both a mindset and a strategy. It really requires a real integration across the institution, across teaching, research, and policy across the organization. And it really supports collaboration, so both national and international collaboration, the research integrity or the integrity of research and education output, reproducibility, and obviously making yourself accountable to science and society. And it fosters inclusive and interdisciplinary communities. So what is the case for connecting the opens? What have we discovered by listening carefully to many of these senior managers at universities across Europe? So connecting the opens, it really creates the conditions that strengthen impact, equity, and inclusion, resulting in a more robust and equitable higher education ecosystem. So that helps us meet, of course, some of our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals with more access to more diverse content. Let me interrupt myself here briefly. I just want to say that not everybody agrees with each of these points, but these points have come from the whole all of our interviews with the 13 universities. So it is a collection of different perceptions and motivations. So my second point here is it really improves safety, security, and privacy in digital learning environments as we take back control of our content. So for some institutions, that sovereignty is really central. And that it's also important for us to reduce our reliance on proprietary information systems and services. And creating greater freedom of choice, so placing the needs of the institution at the center rather than that of commercial providers. So we take ownership of the content and the infrastructure and the services. So that's also part of the open sector. It's important to have more trust in higher education through increased access to quality content, transparency, accountability, and collaboration. So the trust in higher education can be under threat. So senior managers really feel that connecting the opens helps with that. They can also better fulfill their civic responsibility, of course, to the taxpayer by fostering collaboration in research and learning and making resources more broadly accessible. And of course, integrating the opens is grounded in values of knowledge sharing, collaboration, and creating more equal opportunities. This is also key for some, and collectively addressing societal challenges. So the institution can really facilitate better dialogue and addressing, as I say, some of the bigger problems. Connecting the opens also provides an opportunity to find different ways of recognizing and rewarding researchers, students, and institutions, aligning with assessment frameworks. Now, we haven't heard how that's being done, but they do see that there is a potential, particularly in Europe with COARA, where you're looking at different types of output being recognized and rewarded, and that could also mean educational output. So I think potentially there are some good prospects there to see how we can reward our students and teachers for their work, opening up educational materials, for example. And then lastly, for some, this is more important than others, but it also offers economic advantages. So some believe and hope that, of course, it's not a short term, but in the mid to long term, that this could ease financial pressures on institutions by reducing the dependency on some of those costly proprietary systems if we create a new ecosystem of our own, and improving resource efficiency whilst we continue to innovate and grow as an institution. So those are some of the key points for connecting the opens that we've heard from senior managers, and we're really this will really help us as we bring out a position paper, which will be out next month. Yes, it's the end of October now. So in short, that's what I'm going to summarize at the end of our position paper. The interconnectedness between the opens, it really improves knowledge reliability, reduces duplication, lowers costs, and supports more equity and fairness globally, while transforming the landscape of higher education and ensuring long-term institutional relevance and impact. Connecting the opens is not just a matter of efficiency or compliance, it's a fundamental step towards a more impactful, equitable, and future-oriented higher education system. And each institution, region, and culture will need to take its own approach, responding to its own priorities and situation, but all stand to benefit from a connected approach. So do look forward to that position paper, which is really built on the evidence and from what we've been hearing from other senior management at other universities. But this is the beginning of an action plan. So that position paper boosts our activities or starts some of our activities in this area much more concretely and formally. So we seek to build more capacity after we issue that position paper. So connecting experts and resources across Europe, focusing on building capacity amongst senior leadership at universities, and also working with our practitioners and librarians, as we have been for many years. It's important that we foster and grow more collaboration across the Opens and sharing knowledge. And we are considering setting up communities of practice to do that. And we want to continue to develop national institutional policies and strategies that connect the Opens, learning from some of the work that we've been hearing about from some of those institutions that we spoke to, and providing concrete tools and guidance. So that's the high-level action plan. We also had a strategic meeting only very recently to come up with a concrete plan of action, setting names, resources and timings next to some of these things. So do look forward to that from next year in particular onwards. But concretely, the next steps are launching Spark Europe's position paper, as I mentioned. We're developing our concrete plan and strategy, also to become this hub for universities who want to kind of bring this concept to life, if you like. So I think I said, that's right, today we were looking at what's the case for connecting the Opens, but we will also be sharing what is the vision, what are the goals for other organizations for connecting the Opens, what have we heard, what are some of the drivers and barriers to connecting the Opens, what are some of the incentives, the policies, the strategies and resources to implement connecting the Opens from the perspectives of those university leaders. So we will be sharing that out also in the coming months. So I hope you look forward to that. I'm going to pass over to Paola, who also doesn't need any introduction. We also really want to use our capacity building in the webinars that we do. And I think this is a wonderful example of that. Paola, maybe you could report on this one for us?
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa, and happy to do that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, also on my side. The workshop that Vanessa is referring to, and you see the title in the slide, happened only 2 days ago. We had our great librarians, members of the European Network of Open Education Librarians, facilitating it together through international collaboration to co-design it. And it's been a very interesting experience because we also had breakout rooms with participants discussing about what they see as the interconnections and reciprocal benefits of open science and open education from the perspective of different participants from multiple countries. And part of the discussion was focused on exploring reward and recognition and finding ways to support facing the challenges of teaching and researching at the same time, so that they looking at open as one of the means to do that better in the future. We also started discussing about finding ways to embed OER into the opportunities that projects already have to produce and create open science resources. And finding ways to do that could be a strategic move seen from the perspective of participants. We also thought about advocating more prominently about open education using the language of researchers, because sometimes they are still yet not very familiar with it. So we have to do a better job in communicating why it is important to work on both at the same time. And we also discussed about accreditation criteria that could lead institutional change to work more toward open education. So it's been a very interesting and lively discussion. And we also finished discussing what are the next steps for 2026 that we could take as a community of librarians in order to support the discourse and support the community continue upskilling, creating capacity opportunities, and let's say support the community at large so that this conversation can continue and we can support their work better. I think this is a very brief synthesis of what happened in a very lively discussion for 1 whole hour.
Thank you so much, Paola. Also, just before I forget, we are also having a workshop at the Munin conference, which is right in the very north of Norway, in a couple of weeks. So if any of you will be there, we really look forward to also co-design our plans for connecting the opens through this workshop that we're going to do. So that's also happening. But if you're interested in staying in touch on this and would like to hear more about all of the things that these universities have been telling us, so using that evidence base also for your own advocacy and efforts locally, please do reach out either to me directly or to this email. We would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for listening. I haven't been able to follow the chat, but if there are any questions, we are all willing and able to answer those, I'm hoping. I'm going to stop sharing now. Thank you so much for your attention. So lovely to see so many of you here with us today.
We have a question, Vanessa.
Oh, yes.
Actually, more than one.
Great.
More than one. So we have a question from Jim Luke. Hi, Jim. How do we ensure that we'll discover obtain the position paper when it comes out? And Paul already shared that we are going to distribute and disseminate the document on our website and on our channel. We also have a question from Kurt Newton. Hi, Kurt. Have your conversations explored how open education for graduate level learning relies upon all the opens attached to research, less about textbooks?
So actually, what we this exercise has been about us listening to them rather than we influencing or leading any discussion on this topic. So it was really us gaining intelligence from the senior management at universities. So certainly as a follow-up activity, having more conversations with them, sharing what have we heard from them, and then having some of those conversations with them to lead them in more of a direction for connecting the opens where it contextually fits. So this exercise has really been us listening and then digesting this to formulate something important for the community. So the evidence comes from the community, so from the senior management. It's not coming from us. Yes, I think that's how I can answer that question best. Are there any more questions?
Actually, Paul already provided an answer, a written answer to most of them.
Oh, that's great, Paul. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if anyone wants to open their microphone and you are willing to
yes
to ask a question directly, you're very welcome.
So we are unfortunately out of time, but I will allow us to continue a little bit the conversation here. I'm just going to stop the recording though. Just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Lily, and thank